First thing you want to do is remove the tip collector. Just slide it forward and remove it. And then you're going to remove the 5 2.5 millimeter Allen screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can remove the cover. Okay, we're going to resume. The top housing has been removed. The next step, you'll need to turn the tool over, and there is a screw on the bottom, on the backside housing. So what I'm going to do is, with my 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench, is just remove this screw. And then I can actually remove the guts of the housing from the lower jaw, the right-hand housing. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is use a 1.5 millimeter Allen wrench to remove the PC board. So again, I'm just going to take and remove the 2 PC board screws. So I have loosened them up, and then I can remove them. And just so you know, there is a ground wire that goes underneath the front screw post here. Okay. So I have that. The next thing I'm going to do is remove this 2.5 millimeter screw here.
Move it a little bit closer towards you, Norm. The tool, just a little bit. Perfect, thank you.
So I got that screw removed. And by the way, there is a spacer underneath here, so I can slide this out. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is flip the tool over, and there is a 5.5 millimeter open end or nut on here. So I got an 5.5 millimeter open end wrench, and I can just loosen this. And there is a screw on this side, so you may have to put a medium bladed or a small bladed screwdriver in the slot here, which I believe I need to. So what I need to do. So I have a small bladed screwdriver in the slot on one side of the screw head, and then I'm just using this open end wrench to take off the 5.5 millimeter nut and washer that are underneath there. So I've removed them, and now I have that off. And the next thing I'm going to do is grab a 1.5 millimeter Allen wrench, and I'm going to remove this screw right here. Okay. So I have that removed. Next, I'm going to remove the pin for the bevel spur gear. I'm going to take and just push this pin up here. And once I have it up so far, I can remove this. Okay, so then I'm just going to push the pin for the bevel spur gear up out of here, remove it like so. Then I'm going to lift the plate that has these gears right here. I'm just going to lift this plate straight up.
Let me see that.
Remove that. I think we got to do that again.
Yeah, here, we'll just show where it goes.
Okay. So go ahead and put it back on and then remove it.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. Gotcha. Yep.
Okay. So next, you ready?
You're good.
Next, we're just going to lift this gear plate up, and I'm just going to remove it.
Okay.
Okay. Next, I have to remove these 2 screws right here and here. They're M3 bolts, and just so you know, there's M3 nuts on the bottom. So what I do is I hold my finger up, and then I'm just going to remove just remove the screws. So unscrew it far enough and then you can push the nut off the bottom, and also the same with the other screw. And again, I've removed the nut here. And then what I can do is just take and push these two screws out. Go ahead and push this screw out here. So now both of your screws are removed. And then what you want to do is just grab this piece right here, the back of the tool, and just kind of wiggle it back and take this back piece off here. And again, you got to watch this spring sits over this nub on the rear jaw handle.
Let me see it. Hang on, let me zoom in.
Right there.
Okay.
Spring goes there. Okay. So then I can just set this down, and then I can remove the bevel spur gear. And there's also a thrust washer that it goes on the top of it. So I'm just going to take and set that there. But we're going to pick up where we left off. We disassembled the tool to the point of the bevel spur gear. So now what I'm going to do is just take the back of the tool and kind of turn it over and lay it here. Just want to bring to your attention that this spring right here, it may fall out, so just make sure you don't lose that spring. I'm going to leave it set there right now. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is remove this gear. So I'm just going to lift straight up and remove the gear. I'm going to set that down. And just so you know, there is a little input shaft key, which is right here. I don't know if you can see.
Let me zoom in.
Right here.
Hang on.
Okay.
Move it down just a touch or toward me.
Okay.
Perfect, right? Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
So what I'm going to probably do is take this input shaft key out of here. So again, just so you can see it, it fits in that slot right there.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to set this on the side here. The next thing I'm going to do with a small screwdriver is there's a C-clip right here. I'm going to remove that, just kind of pop that off right like so. Okay. I'm going to set that small C-clip there. And then I'm going to use a 1.27 millimeter Allen wrench to remove these two little screws right here and here. Again, I'm going to just take and loosen these screws right here. And here. Okay. And then I can remove the two screws. Okay, so I have these two screws right here. Alrighty. And then now, what I want to do is turn my tension all the way down. So I have my tension indicator turned all the way down right here. So I've turned it as low as it'll go. And then what I'm going to do is remove this top plate here. It's called the left-hand side plate. But what I want to do is create a little bit of gap all the way around the plate. You don't ever want to pry up on one side or the other. So again, you want to just work the plate up a little bit. You can see I have a little bit of a gap here. So I'm just kind of wiggling this apart. Okay. The next thing is there is a spring in here. So what I do is I put my thumb right here. And what I'm going to do is pop up on this plate a little bit further. Now I can actually take my top plate out. So again, my spring that I was talking about just had come right out of there. But this spring, by the way, sits right here. It's going to sit right in here. Okay, so that's going to be where that head retainer spring sits. Okay, I'll remove it. Okay, so anyway, we have it removed to this point. The next thing I'm going to do is remove my tension shaft, which is right here. So I'm just going to grab it and just kind of lift it back towards me, rotate it back. And then what I'm going to do is, as you notice, there's a little tiny ball right here. So there's two detent balls, and the other one just slipped out of my hand, and it is right here. So anyway, these two detent balls will fit in these tiny,
Zoom in.
these small half moon shaped holes here. Okay? Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is the head retainer. I have to remove this. There's a C-clip on the bottom side here. So what I can do is, if I can turn this around, is take and remove this bottom C-clip, just like this. So again, you can see the little C-clip there. And then what I'm going to do is push up on this pin, or push down, I should say. And then what I can do is slide it up out of this side. Okay. And then I'm going to take this link off here, like so. Just lift it up. This is called a tie guide. I'm just going to actually lift up on it. And I've got that removed from the tool. And then your head retainer is right here. So this is the head retainer itself for the tool. Okay. So this is the part we're going to be replacing. In the head retainer replacement kit, you'll receive 4 items: the head retainer itself, the blade pin, and then 2 C-clips.
And live.
So now we're going to put our new head retainer in the tool. So the first thing we want to do is grab our head retainer and slide it in here. So what I'm going to be doing is lining up holes. So what I want to do is, this pin here actually moves your blade, so that you want that all the way forward position. Now what I do is I use the little 1.27 millimeter Allen wrench, and what I do is just kind of line up the holes between the head retainer and the links. So there's, like I say, you're just trying to line up the holes. Then what I do is I take, this is called my tie guide, it's going to go over the top of the head retainer. So I'm just going to slide this into position. And again, after I do this, I always still make sure I'm aligned right, make sure that my blade pin's going to go in very easily. So again, lined up all the way through. And then I'm going to take my top link, and again, what I'm doing is, this piece here is called a detent assembly that pivots. I keep it in the forward position, and then what I'm going to do is slide my link here, just like so, and then it's going to go over the pin in the front. So it's going to go right here. So now I have it seated. The link is over the pin in the front. And then just last thing I'm going to do is just check and make sure that I'm still completely lined up with the holes are all lined up. And then what I'm going to do is grab my blade pin, which is right here, and I'm going to slide it in. So I slid my new blade pin in. And then what I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is take my top C-clip, small C-clip here. And I'm going to set it right like there. And then what I do is I'm going to just slide this down until I hit, there's a little slot in the blade pin, and then just push and I snap that in position. And now what I need to do is flip the tool over, and then there's going to be another C-clip that goes on the bottom part of the pin. So sometimes what you can do, if this helps, is to spin your gear train so you can see the opening in the front jaw gear disc. That gives you a little bit more visual of where you're putting the C-clip on. So now what I'm going to do is take my C-clip and set it on here like so. And then what I need to do,
Go
ahead. So
Yep.
now I have my C-clip in position, and I'm just going to, again, snap it in position. So now I have my blade pin locked in on both sides with the C-clip. Again, what I'm going to do is just flip my plate over. And again, this is called a detent sensor. In the event it falls out, it just sits on a couple of pins, a couple of posts. Okay, so that's seated just like it's supposed to be. Now the next thing I'm going to do is replace the tension shaft. So what I want to do here is there's a spring that goes over the tension shaft, so I put the spring on. I have my tension turned all the way down, all the way to the minimum, all the way as close to the knob. And then what you want to do is you need to line up the center of the shaft with the hole in the cam. And then what you're going to do is just push it in, and then just rotate it over the top and snap it in position like so. So now if I flip this over, you can see my tension indicator is in the window. Okay, so I have that. The next thing we're going to do after we've installed the tension shaft is install these two little detent balls. So what I'm going to do is I took and put a small dab of grease on the tip of the screwdriver. So what I can do is kind of pick it up, and these little holes right here in the back of the tension shaft is where they're going to go. So as you can see, I've got one place there. The other one is going to go on the other side. So here's the other one. And again, just going to set it in position. Okay. Now I have it in position. And by the way, they are kind of tough to get in position. So anyway, I have them in position. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is install my head retainer spring. So to install that, I have a tool that Panduit sells. It's called a head retainer spring insertion tool. What I'm going to do is slide the spring on this tool, and then there is a hole in the back of the head retainer. We can zoom in right here. You see where this hole is at?
Let me get in there. Hang on a second.
Okay. So the spring is going to go in that hole, and then I'm going to actually take and put it in this slot right here. Okay. So what I want to do is just go ahead and push this in, and this tool helps hold the spring in position. Then what I'm going to do is take my top plate and actually set it over the top here. And then what I need to do is push it down evenly, like so. And I have the plate all the way down. Then I can pull this tool out. It held the spring in position. And now I'm ready to install my C-clip, which is right here. And then my two little 1.27 millimeter Allen screws. So again, I got them in, and then I'm just going to tighten them up. And again, you just want to finger tighten these screws. You don't want to over tighten them, because if you strip them out, you'll have to drill them out. Okay, the next thing we're going to do after the top plate is installed is install this input shaft key. So this little tiny input shaft key, what I've done is put a little dab of grease on the end of a screwdriver. Helps to pick the part up. And if you see this slot right here, this input shaft key goes in this slot. So again, we're going to take and slide it in here. And sometimes it can be Now you can see I have the input shaft key in position. So what I'm going to do is actually put my gear over the top of it. If you take a look, there is a boss or raised area on one side of the gear. So the boss or raised area faces down. So what I do is I put a little pressure in on my input shaft key to hold it in position, and then just slide the gear over the top of the input shaft key on the shaft. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is, this is now we're going to pick up for where we did the bevel spur gear. So again, the next thing I'm going to do after I have my gear on here is take my bevel spur gear, slide it there with my thrust washer, set that right on the top. And then what I need to do is grab the back of the tool. I'm holding the motor here. And what I want to do is the spring. I need the spring that is sitting right here. I need to get that aligned right with where this little nub is at on the rear jaw handle. So what I want to do is just set this on like so, pull it down, And what I'm doing is interlocking where the motor fits right here, the motor mount, and then just snap it together like so. And then the next thing I'm going to do is grab a couple of screws here, my M3 bolts, and go through the holes. One there and one here. Okay, so I've slid them in position. And then what I want to do is grab these two M3 nuts here, and what I'm going to do is just put them, set it on the back here, and then I'm going to tighten this screw up here. And again, I'm just lightly tightening these initially. Same thing with my other nut, is I'm going to take and set it on top of this screw here, push it down a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going to flip the tool over and tighten this screw also. So again, just for the time being, just lightly tighten them until I get everything together. So that's in position. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do now is take this plate right here with the gear on it, and I'm going to set it in position like so. And what I need to do is get the gears to mesh. So I just slid it down, and now I have all my gears meshing. So what I need to do now is, once I have that in place, there is a spacer that goes underneath where this front screw goes.
Okay, can we see that? Can you rotate it a little bit, Norm?
Okay, sure.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to slide this underneath the plate. Okay. And then I'm going to take this screw and put it in here like so. Again, I'm just kind of initially just finger tighten the screws here. Okay, just lightly tightened. So the next thing I'm going to do is my bevel spur gear is under here. It's just kind of, I got my 2.5 millimeter Allen, but just going to make sure I'm somewhat lined up and I can actually mesh my gears. And then I'm going to take the pin for the bevel spur gear and just go ahead and set it in here, line it up, and just go ahead and kind of push it down. And I can actually just kind of tap it. Once you got the pin for the bevel spur gear in so far, if you start just rotating the gears, it'll kind of find its position and seat real nice. Okay. And the next thing I want to do is flip this over. And there is a M3 washer and an M3 nut that are going to go on that right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and, again, finger tighten that. Okay, so I have that in position. Then what I'm going to do is grab my 1.5 millimeter Allen wrench and this little screw right here, and I'm going to put it right here. So that screw is going to go in this hole. So that's seated. Okay. So now then, now that I have the interns of the tool, and make sure my gear train spins nice and free. And then what I'm going to do now is finish tightening up my screws. So again, what I want to do here is, you want to make sure that this screw here is tightened down, snug. And then these two screws right here, the two M3 bolts, I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that they're tightened down. So you just want to make sure they're good and snug. Okay. And then the last thing is you want to tighten this nut up with I have a 5.5 millimeter open end wrench. It's a 5.5 millimeter nut, so you can start tightening it. And then what you need to do is grab your screwdriver here, and you want to grab your small bladed screwdriver and put it in this hole right here, in the slot right here on this screw head. And then you want to come back to the 5.5 millimeter nut and just finish tightening it. So I have a screwdriver in the slot of that screw head, and then what you want to do is just tighten this. So now I have it good and tight.
Ready.
The next thing we're going to do is put the board screws on, these small screws here. So what I'm going to do is the front board screw, there is a ground terminal underneath here. So what I'm trying to do is, if you can see that ground terminal, I normally just try to put it on like so, and then I'm going to drop my board and tighten that up. Okay, so I have the ground terminal in position. Grab my 1.5 millimeter Allen and just go ahead and tighten it down. And then grab my other screw here and tighten it down as well. Okay. So now my board is secured. Okay. So now the interns of the tool are all pretty well back together like they should be. The last thing we're going to do is put the tool back in the housings. So what I'm going to do is just grab the tool. And the main two things, you want to make sure that on the back of the tool there's a slot in the back of the housing and there's a rib on this connector. Just make sure that that is seated there properly. And then I just set the interns in. And the last thing I want to do is my membrane switch. Again, there is a slot in the bottom housing. So I'm just going to push that membrane switch. So, okay. And the last thing we're going to do is set the top housing on. And then set the top housing. And again, the main thing is you need to make sure you get your membrane switch in that slot. I have the housings put together pretty nice here. And the other thing is your rear jaw handle will always move real smoothly when that's in position. So what I'm going to do is start putting my screws in. So there's 5 screws that I'm going to put on this side and 1 on the back side. But again, just to start, I'm going to put, this goes a small screw, a long screw. There's going to be a small screw here that I'm going to wait on. I'm going to put a long screw in the back. And then there's also a short screw here. So I have those in. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, since I set the screws in there, just go ahead and tighten them up. So just go ahead and finger tight. Just go ahead and snug your screws down. So I have those 2. This one here. One in the back. And the last screw, before you put this screw in right here, there's a counterbalance holder, so you can slide it in the slot right in the tool here, and you can just line up the hole, and then you're going to just go ahead and put that screw right in there. So again, that's snug. And again, you don't want to over tighten these screws because there's brass inserts in the bottom side. So again, just making sure that they're good and snug. You don't need to over tighten them. Okay. And then the tool's back together. And then, like I say, I'm going to flip the tool over. There's 1 screw that goes on the bottom side, 1 2.5 millimeter Allen screw. So we're going to go ahead and put that in. So it's good and snug. And then again, my rear jaw handle moves nice and smooth. And then I'm going to put my tip collector back on. And now I'm ready to put the tool back into production.
Nice job, Norm.